Hi, I'm bchase, Director of Digital Forensics here at Archer Hall. And today I want to talk to you about the case of Mr. Williams, who was wrongfully arrested and accused of stealing from a jewelry store. Mr. Williams was at work one day and he gets a call telling him he needs to go to the police station. He thinks it's some kind of joke or a scam and he ignores it. Instead, he goes home where he is immediately arrested in his driveway in front of his wife and his children. He's taken into custody, he's booked into the jail, and he's kept there overnight. The next morning, he's taken into an interrogation room. They ask him if he's been to this jewelry store before, and he says yes, that he had been there when it first opened. In front of him on the table are three pieces of paper flipped upside down so that you can't see what's on the paper. He's then confronted with a picture from the video surveillance of that store. They flip over one of those pieces of paper in front of him. Detectives ask if it's him. Mr. Williams takes the piece of paper and he holds it up next to his face and says, "No, this is not me. You think all black men look alike?" The picture was clearly not of Mr. Williams. So the question becomes, how did Mr. Williams end up in this position? Well, facial recognition tools have a lot of problems. And that's what police here used. They took that surveillance video, it was grainy, it was not clear, and they sent it to their lab to have the lab run it through their facial recognition software. The problem with a lot of facial recognition software is we don't know what the error rate is. It struggles with minorities. It struggles with grainy pictures like the type you get from poor quality surveillance videos, and it can lead to a lot of false positives. There was a story about a year or two ago where a journalist took the pictures of black members of Congress and ran it through facial recognition programs. And nearly every single one of them came back with a hit of a known criminal. And yet none of our members of Congress were known criminals. In this case, that facial recognition match came back to the detectives with a warning on it. It said, "This document is not a positive identification. It is an investigative lead only and is not probable cause for an arrest." Yet the detectives ignored that and arrested Mr. Williams anyway, based solely on this facial recognition. In Mr. Williams' recollection, after he held the surveillance video next to his face, the two detectives leaned back in their chairs and looked at one another. One detective, seemingly chagrined, said to his partner, "I guess the computer got it wrong." But there was more. They turned over that third piece of paper that was in front of him with a picture of Mr. Williams' driver's license. And Mr. Williams again pointed out that these were not the same people. He asked if he was free to go, and they said no. They actually kept him. He had to place bail, and once he placed the bail, he was able to get out. He spent $1,000 on bail. When he went to his first court appearance, the case was dismissed. But the prosecutor said they might refile if they get additional information linking Mr. Williams to the crime. There are many problems in this case. For example, that police relied upon facial recognition with very clear instructions not to do so. Facial recognition has led to wrongful arrests before. This is not the first case. This story from the New York Times that I've been quoting has a lot of information about how these programs work, or rather how they do not work. And in this case, there was actually digital evidence that showed Mr. Williams' innocence. He in fact had an alibi that on the day of the robbery from that jewelry store, he was actually driving home from work, and he had posted a video to his Instagram account at the time that the robbery was occurring. So had detectives investigated further, had they looked at other sources of digital evidence, they would have found that Mr. Williams was in fact innocent and that the facial recognition program got it wrong. These programs have a lot of problems. If you feed it bad material, such as grainy photos, then it's going to result in bad information. Likewise, these are not well developed for minorities. They're trained with a lot of pictures of white people and not a lot of pictures of people of color, and therefore they result in a lot of false positives for people of color. Yet law enforcement agencies around the country are using facial recognition. We've seen it used in the protests in June over the Black Lives Matter protests over George Floyd's death, and we will continue to see facial recognition programs used around the country. Companies like Microsoft are pushing for federal regulation governing the use of facial recognition. If you have facial recognition in one of your cases, or you're dealing with digital evidence from surveillance videos, or maybe a video from Instagram that proves your client is innocent, give us a call. We'd be happy to help you. Thanks for watching.